AI for node failure prediction and recovery in wireless sensor network. I have kept AI bigger because I am going to give you more perspective on AI because that is the trend right now. And then we move on to node failure prediction. That was my research work, part of my research work. So let us start with the presentation. So what you mean by AI? AI is a collective domain. It has machine learning, natural language processing, fuzzy logic, expert system, and robotics. They are all part of the AI. So when you see that, they are collectively giving or contributing information to the AI. So when you see AI could also be broadly categorized into two types. One is weak AI, another is a strong AI. What do you mean by weak AI? Yes, AI system that is designed and trained to complete specific tasks. They are called weak AI. Example, your virtual personal assistant like Apple Siri and recommendation systems, they all use weak AI. Whereas strong AI is also known as artificial general intelligence because it has the capability of cognitive ability, cognitive thinking. So for real-time, hard real-time systems, like where the decision is very, very important, you can take a autopilot mode on a flight or in a car, the decision is very, very important. At that time, the AI system should provide you with the correct information. So that time we are going to have fuzzy logic as the technology so that it can make a precise decision or very precise decision which will help you on taking a correct decision on that particular position. As a human brain, it acts like. So that is all about strong AI. So that is the starting for AI. I have come across with some memes because nowadays when you are doing literature survey, it will take your time so much. At that time, many collective memes are being created. You can see that the picture at the left end, you can see there is a statistics alone. It is not noticed by everyone. Then they put a frame over it. We call it as a machine learning. Then it becomes little beautiful. And when people perspective or people experience or intelligence or being given to it, it becomes artificial intelligence. So the meme speaks more. So I thought of having some memes on my presentation also that will be helpful for you. Okay, here we have so many domains. As a practitioner of artificial intelligence and machine learning, I have done some codings and programs on both the fields. So I wanted to explore take you to explore the machine learning tools that I have been using. So what is machine learning? Next question is, machine learning is learning from an experience, whereas it's like a human, whereas normal programs, they follow the instructions that we all know. So when you broadly categorize the domain of machine learning, because it is overruling the world right now, it can be broadly categorized into three main domains. First domain is called supervised learning. So in supervised learning, there are two types. One is classification, where you have to input and output labels are predefined and you are able to easily classify the items or the inputs. So we have the labels predefined. So example, you can say cancer detection, tumor detection, where we go for classification. And next is the regression. It's a line of decision. Normally regression comes for continuous data, numerical data, we use it. For weather forecasting or stock market prediction, we use this line of decision. So that all about regression. Regression, we have three types. One is linear regression, multilinear regression, and we have logistic regression. So for prediction, we use regression. Next is the unsupervised learning. Unsupervised learning, we doesn't know about the characteristics of all the, we have not explored all the characteristics of input. We also, they are distinctive, very distinctive, and also we don't know what is the output. So we are not able to give the labels so that you have to match the input to the output. We cannot do it. At that time, you can go for unsupervised learning. In unsupervised learning, we have two types. One is clustering, Okay, you can see that the data in the rightmost end where data are being spreaded as blue dots, and then later they learn the measures, what they are connected to. They try to group by themselves, and this is clustered data at the output you can see on the left hand. Okay, next is the dimensionality reduction. So mostly the clustering we use in the recommendation systems, because we don't know distinct recommendation systems work on data which are very distinctive, like in social media platforms, in other blogs, all is included. At that time you cannot see the class labels. So at that time you have to each one of the data has to be studied properly, and their distinctive nature has to be observed so that you could can group them. So at that time you have to go for clustering. Also you have to study about the customer segmentation. For marketing we will go for clustering. For example, you take an example of a car which is being selling a particular model of the car a company has produced, and one set of customers are always interested in buying the car, and other set is not interested. So other groups, then you have to study the distinctive nature, because why that group is buying, why other group is not buying, what is the difference between them, what is the commonality between the group that are buying the same. All this you have to study. So studying the customer or segmenting the customer also you have to go for clustering. And next is the dimensionality reduction, where I already told here we don't know more about the data. So your data must be varied dimension. You have to study the data to convert that into some dimensions or into a processed input, or make it a lower dimension so that it could be processed for further algorithm. So that is given there for dimensionality reduction. So one more learning I didn't tell you, that is reinforcement learning, which is gaining importance right now. Many augmented reality, AI games are developed based on the reinforcement learning, and this is the learning technology is now getting the researchers' interest. So we'll see what is reinforcement learning. Reinforcement learning is like learning from the failures. So whatever the past failure, from that you are going to learn. So when you see the reinforcement environment, you can see that there is a agent or a decision maker. It is having two different decisions to make at a situation. You can say either it could make, it can go for a correct decision or wrong decision. When you go for a wrong decision, your points will be less. And if you go for a correct decision, you will get a reward points. So when you get penalty, what happened? Your decision is being thrown at the end. And when you're getting a reward points, your decisions are made at the higher end. So the policies are updated. So mostly robotics, robot navigation systems, all this has been built using reinforcement learning. So for hard real time, we can also use reinforcement learning. Next, these are all the applications of machine learning that you have come across. So not much of introduction is needed. So all this is a thing. So right now, I'm going to give you a hands-on experience where I have used different packages in Python, and I have explored R also. So these are all the packages, and the interface I have worked with Jupyter Notebook, Spider, and Google Colab. Right now, you can see that there is a package called Seaborn in Python. This will be most useful for the young researchers who are going to do AI initiatives, and also for the students who are willing to do projects on AI. So we are right now in a situation we should adapt to the AI platforms, because we are forced, because of the pandemic, we are all forced to enrich our knowledge on technology. So everybody should have a hands-on experience in upcoming days. So I thought this might be very useful for you. So that's why I'm sharing my insights here. So you can see that Seaborn is a data visualization package in Python. I have installed Python 3.8, and NumPy is used for arrays. And then we have Scikit-learn, which is a machine learning algorithms. Then pandas for data frames. When you are going to use, you have to use panda. Then Matplotlib, again a data structure which is used for graphical representation. OpenCV, Keras, TensorFlow, all three are deep learning networks. So we use this three packages, deep learning network, and this three has made our deep learning concept very easier. Then we have SciPy, which is a tan and cosine. This is mathematical transform functions could be used here. So right now I'm going to give you some programming examples that I have executed. So that will be helpful for you to understand. First is the phase detection program. You can see that how this program runs. So you can see that so many objects, other objects are there, but face has been recognized and the features have been correctly captured by this program. When you see the program, you have only 10 lines of hardly a code. I have imported CV2, it's an open CV package. I have used Spider Python 3.8, and you can see I have given an input image face.jpg, and you can see that this is the file frontal face .xml. This is the file which is having all the features of face being extracted. The training and the testing set, everything is coming along with this package. So simply what I have converted this image here, you can say I have read the photo image and then I have converted into a grayscale. You can see that the code is doing that, the function is doing that, and then you are checking the face, front elevation of the face, and then you are doing it. So when you do that with MATLAB in the olden days without this OpenCV, if you go for deep learning, how much lines of code you might expect? It will be like around 90 or 100 lines you have to do it for facial recognition in deep learning networks, and the time and the processing also it will be high. So one more example is motion detection. See, nowadays this is having a very good research initiatives because many authentication systems are failed due to this problem where the human is showing a mobile, because today we are having high definition cameras. So any motion detection, if you want to authenticate a person, you can simply show the camera and they can get in. But you have to check for the motion detection. So many have higher end companies, they are asking the person to turn left, right before they are going inside. So at that time, it is very difficult. It's one area of research where liveness detection has to be done. A person has come physical, or he is doing some other malfunction. We have to check it. So in that case, we use motion detection, and one more program for that. It's a simple initiative. You can convert into your project here. So you can see that here the cars has been identified. The cars which are in motion can be identified with the set of code. Here again I used OpenCV. I have only mentioned the object as car. Similarly, you can also say as human. But when you see there is a vehicle which is a lorry, when it comes, it doesn't recognize it. You can see that lorry is not being recognized at all, because it is only checking for the cars. You can also count the number of cars. You can also use the number plates. You can scan the number plate of the car. These are all the research initiative which could be done at the end of the mobile toll gates. We can initiate all this on the toll gates. Okay, next I'm going to give you an example of a multi-object detection. So in machine learning, multi-object detection is when you are going with MATLAB or something, it will be very difficult because you have to store n number of images, multiple objects, their features you have to extract, you have to store to identify it. But when you do with OpenCV or Keras, it will be very easy for you to do. So I'm just running that code for you also. You can check that. So here is the program. So it has hardly 10 lines of code. You can see here the bicycle, here is the bicycle, here is the motorcycle, and the number of persons are being counted also. There is a bus. So when I want to count, I have given it wrong, it is person only. So number of persons in the image is 14. Because the label, I have label.count, I have used person, so it is able to do the person, count the person. So this is multi-object detection. When you go for multi-object detection on MATLAB or all the thing, hard coding, it will take a lot of time. Since we have exposed to the technology, and if you have GPU process, it will be easy for you to run such codes and explore yourself. While running this code, what difficulty you will face is that packages. So we sometimes the correct packages, if you are not using, it will show a error, but we can rectify it, we can run it. And you can also see that some objects are not being predicted. You can see the suitcase is being predicted, the suitcase also predicted. You can see here the slide is not predicted because that is not given in your package. So the package has got its own inputs for objects detection, and then whatever is given there, it could be detected. Suppose you want to rewrite the package, it is always allowed in Python. You can do it. It's an open source. You can start writing your own package and publish it. It will be also useful to others. So that is about multi-object detection. And one more example I want you to show is about the person identification. If suppose when you are going for a Google Meet like this, or in a class you are taking attendance, so you want to check the person whether he is a correct person, identity of a person you want to verify before leaving or in asking to attend the class, then you can go for such kind of program. This is a program where web cameras has been initiated. Once this program run, web camera will be activated, and you can see that the images has been captured and the edges are detected. After that, you can use these edges to process it. So you can see here the code is very less only, less number of line. Just I have initiated the packages to capture the video, and then I am identifying the edges. From this facial extraction, features extraction, you can also go for authentication system. This is a very initial step of programming. You can also build up this program to do that for generating a authentication system while you are attending a meeting for a company or something. When there is a serious meeting or a very management meeting, at that time we can also check the identity and ask the person to enter the screen. So that is possible with this thing. Okay, so mainly the characteristic of machine learning is that user engagement or customer engagement. So that is one of the topic. I also wanted to do a customer engagement, so I want you to take up this. I wanted to take up this quiz, so we'll do the quiz at the end. So it will be a gaming quiz, so you'll be enjoying it. It is done in Kahoot. So I'll share this link at the end. Okay, right now we'll move on to the next topic. Next topic, which is very interesting, is the natural language processing. Okay, so natural language processing is getting the researcher more attention, because whatever we use as a in Google every day, when you type something, it is autocorrect by itself. It is because of the natural language processing system. We have two types. One is that text, we can do with text. Natural language processing could be done with text and also with the voice. So if you go for a language translation system, any language that is provided by Google translation system is purely built using natural language processing. And we have dialogue system and chatbots. As an admission coordinator for Karunya, I was having CSE. I'm the coordinator for CSE. So what happened, having usually I get the questions like, what is the fees details of the course, or what is the highest package of people being placed, and what is the course structure, what is the hostel structure. So common questions. I thought of creating a chatbot for it. So we started doing it with Rasa package, which is available in Python, and it is very easy. And I have stored certain question and the answer. It was easy for me to do that. But when you are going for intelligent chatbots, okay, that is very difficult, because emotion detection has to, or emotion analysis or sentiment analysis has to be done at the other end, so that it becomes intelligent chatbots. Nowadays in US and other country, they are using this human avatars. We call it as a digitized human. Okay, so they are being used to share their personal feelings. For example, health related questions, I don't want to share it directly to a human being. Instead, I can go for a chatbot or a digitized human. Right here, I give you 1 minute time. You can see there is a code. You can just scan this code on your mobile. You can see a human avatar. Anyone can do it. All of you can do it. It is a COVID-19 project by TCS. That is a human. When you scan this code with your barcode, you can see a human face. This human face will answer whatever question you ask. It's an intelligent robot, chatbot. So nowadays, the personal question, relationship questions, all this could be done with chatbots. So now humans are being replaced with, even for customer call, we can use chatbots. So this is how your AI is improving every day, replacing human with avatars. So they are called avatars. They are digitized human. Okay, I'll come to the sentiment analysis when I will explain you about a program. And next, text summarizers. It is also a very good area where you can do your research. I'll talk about it in the next slides. And speech recognition, where you will be doing digital signal processing is involved. In speech recognition, disabled people, their speech could be made very clear by suppressing the signals which is murmuring or like that. Noise reduction could be done, and it is a wide area of research for brain computing, human interface computing. All this we are going with speech recognition. So that is also a very good area for researchers to open up. So these are all about the natural language processing. And fuzzy logic I have used in my research, and every place we have been using. Till from second year of BTech, we have studied fuzzy logic and fuzzy systems, and that has been very much useful in nowadays for artificial intelligence and domain experts. So right now, you can see this website. I want you to relax and check this website. So I am engaging you, engaging the audience. Okay, can you recognize this person, any of you? Can anyone recognize this person? No. Any idea? You can give it in chat box. I am just checking the chat box also. I'm just checking the chatting history also. Anyone can say, anyone know this? Is just type no otherwise. I have to go a bit slower. I am a faster person. I'll do it today. Okay. Can anyone can know this? You can say simply no. Okay. No, because it's a AI dream. This project is called StyleGAN 2. Okay. How this project has come into existence, I'll explain you. Before going to this, it is a project done by NVIDIA. You all know NVIDIA, I hope. NVIDIA is non-virtual desktop, because it's a plug and play like Google Colab. I have worked with Google Colab. So whatever program today I executed for ML, I need a GPU. My system is supporting that. You have 8 GB RAM. All this is required. But suppose I even have only desktop, I can plug in. If you have a Gmail ID, you can register yourself in the Gmail Google Colab, and you can store the drive you can use to store the images, whatever 2,000, 3,000 images if you want, you can show. Store it, but when you go about 2 GB, you cannot store it. Okay, so you can store that information and use Google Colab to run this code. Same code can run in the Google Colab environment if you don't have a computer. Similarly, NVIDIA is a deep learning processor. It is engaging in virtual reality, augmented reality, graphical user interface, high definition graphical user interface. So the face I have generated is not real person. You can see that this person does not exist.com. This is very famous from 2019. This is the AI dream, because as a human, you can dream about an eye, you can dream about a hair, but you cannot have a figure, like you cannot have all together and make it as a face. Our imagination is not that much, but AI is going behind or beyond human imagination and doing this. It is able to do this for us. So when you see this, this is not a human really present. So I can be sure, because it is checking all the social media and giving you this information. So I want you to watch this video, which is done right now by NVIDIA, and this project is upcoming project and gives you a very big insight into the concept of deep learning.
StyleGAN, and it was absolutely incredible. StyleGAN seemed to become a big trend in early 2019, making news headlines around the world and giving birth to websites like thispersondoesnotexist.com. It set the standard for generative adversarial networks and was the state of the art for a long time. Well, on December 3rd, almost exactly 1 year after the release of StyleGAN, NVIDIA has released StyleGAN 2. This new version of StyleGAN comes with various improvements to image quality, efficiency, diversity, and disentanglement. And the results are incredible. The faces you are looking at are not real, but have been generated by StyleGAN 2. The way that it learns to generate these faces is by using a deep learning method called the Generative Adversarial Network, or GAN for short. The coolness doesn't stop there with StyleGAN 2 though. Not only can it generate faces, it can be trained to generate almost anything as long as there are enough pictures of that thing kicking around. For example, one thing that there's a lot of pictures of is cats. All of these images of cats have been generated by StyleGAN 2 from absolutely nothing. These images are beautiful, and I can't even tell if some of them are real or fake. It can also generate pictures of cars, which is pretty gnarly. Latent codes for two images can be combined, with one image's codes on some layers and another image's codes on some other layers. This way, you can combine the faces of two generated people, where the resulting images will have features like skin color, eye color, etc. of the one, and the face shape, pose, gender, etc. of the other one. The images you see here are a combination of low-level features from the left image, such as skin color, hair color, and lighting, with the high-level features of the top row, such as gender, pose, and in the case on the left, even glasses. Here are some examples from the creators of StyleGAN 2. This work is absolutely incredible, and I can just imagine combining the faces of many different people who look particularly different just to see what they would look like if they were the same. If that wasn't cool enough already, StyleGAN 2 can also be helpful in detecting whether an image was generated or not. Since the conception of deepfakes, people have been very concerned with making sure that fake AI-generated content isn't being faked or can be detected as being faked. Using an optimization process, images can be reconstructed back to the latent codes I mentioned earlier. If the image can almost perfectly be reconstructed, then it's obviously been generated. Otherwise, it's safe to assume that the image is real, as can be shown here. So StyleGAN 2 is absolutely mind-blowing, and there's no doubt about that. For anyone who's seen my GitHub, you'll know that I'm particularly interested.
So that's all about how the NVIDIA is giving the reality check on AI. So we have a lab I haven't visited yet. I thought of going it and doing, because it's mainly for design purposes, creative designs of machines, any automotive parts, or a game, mostly used in game AI. All this is being, because NVIDIA has supported Sony in PlayStation construction. So they have been a pioneer on gameplay playing platforms, but right now they are also having given initiative on artificial intelligence in other area also. So you can follow them, NVIDIA, on the websites. So next, I thought of having a small exposure to you. I'll put a thing on comment box. I want you to take up this quiz so that whoever faculty who are attending here will be helpful, because this I designed in Kahoot. It's a game-based thing. I can also see how many of you are participating in it. So I hope you are attending. So it's a Kahoot is a, you can see that student will be engaged when you are giving such kind of informations, and you can do it. As a viewer, I can also see the questions. So I'm giving introduction. So 7 has participated. Divya, Bala, RS. Answer is wrong. Only 13% is correct. You can see the image, I think. So people will be engaged when you are doing online boring lectures. So they can also do it. You can see that Divya, Bala and RS has got 7 has finished, and out of 76, I think 7 only has done it. So you're all listening. Thank you so much for the 7 of the people. And this is a technique we can evaluate how many of you are listening to us. So this you can engage the students or engage when you're going for giving lectures like this on an online platform, we can do it. So only 7 people. Shamila, Raj, Jemi, Sankita, Anita, Anand, thank you for participating. So you're all, the ranking is also done. So you can see that people will be very much happy to see that. So those who are attending very actively, 21, it has become 21. So those who are attending actively, thank you so much for attending this quiz and taking up it. So right now I'll move on to the next topic. Okay, next, bridging the gap. So you can see the photo at the left end, because from the beginning I was little much interested in company certification and how it is going about in company. So I thought of there is a gap between academia and the company. So we had an internship on Pune, which is a Synachron. The company name is Synachron. It is one of the multinational company. About 50,000 people are working. And here very stringent rules are there for recruitment, and this is where we have worked in Pune for 1 month as an intern, not as a project or into the project, but as an intern. So here you can see our team. Who is in the center is the director. He is Shivendra Singh, and remaining all is our team, and this is our project manager. So what we did on there is very, very important for me to understand the academic and the company. What is their perspective? It differs sometimes. See, in academic, we thought we have to give lectures and importance on theories, algorithms, which make the student understand the underlying concept. When you go for the company, they need to use this concept to satisfy the customer. So customer point of view or engaging the customer is the primary aim there. So that's what we learned there. So first, I was introduced to your Facebook bidding algorithm. Right now, humans are replaced by AI algorithms. So whatever the humans are doing, for example, people's are when you complete 4th year, they will ask you, they will recruit you and keep you as a programmer or application developer. Right now, this AI algorithms are designed in such a way they will drag and drop and they will code. You have to design algorithm that will code. Okay, similarly, this Facebook ad bidding algorithm, you can go and Google it. Facebook ads are purely done by the AI algorithm. From Facebook, nobody is engaged in doing that. Only the algorithm is taking care of the revenue that is generated from the ad. So you can see that as a social media person, when we go inside, you can see there is a suggestion or ad coming on our page, how it is being done. So this Facebook is running a AI algorithm which is keep track of all the profiles of the user and also what he is interested in, and also it start connecting to the customers who are providing. For example, I am interested in beauty products or I am interested in kurtis, so it will find that what kind of searches I am doing and start giving the bidding to the such kind of industries. And that industry, if it is a small industry, they will have a budget and they will quote it. If it is a bigger industry or a bigger giants, they have to run their own AI algorithm which will calculate their entire share values, their market price and their budget allocated for it, how much success rate on doing it in Facebook or some other platform is good. All this could not be done by a human. We know calculation, but we cannot do that much faster. It takes in a fraction of a second. When the Facebook getting refreshed, each time when I refresh or load, this algorithm works and get you the ad. So how much faster a algorithm and precision, faster and precision. AI algorithm is doing both. It's giving us, that is very, very important. Another project we were working on is the recommendation system. So recommendation system, you right now, you know that anything, or we can say that it is also a sentiment analysis or something. When government, even government of India is doing for any project launch, so they are given, the project is given to IBM India, because one of my friend is working in IBM India, and while talking, they told that they are doing sentiment analysis for the projects. Okay, so how they are doing this project is they are doing the web scraping. So what is web scraping? Like I have done a web scraping program on Twitter. This is my Twitter page. You can do it for any other page. I just did it for myself. So you can see that I have written a program, and I'm just giving the username. So it could be anything. So username I'm just giving, and all the images in my pages are downloaded. Not only image, you can also do it with text, and it is getting stored on my local storage. So this is what we do in the web scraping. When you do for text scraping, we also can do text scraping, but you have to know regular expression, regress, we call it as in Python. We can use it to do it. You can see this in this. I have used in this program. You can use Twitty. This Twitty is the API. So this has to be used. And when you do that in Hadoop platform, because when you are a bigger big data, when you're analyzing an entire network at that time, for example, a company, if your company data, I'm just going to check, I need a big architectures to retrieve the data, images, and store. At that time, we can use Flume architecture. I will talk about that Flume also in the next slide. So this Twitty is the API for Twitter. Similarly, for Facebook, we have an API. You can find it out. And this is very important. Here I have generated a consumer key, access token, and access secret. This is a simple example for web scraping. You can plug in and do it. As a student, you can always try. But for this, you have to get a Twitter authentication by registering yourself as a programmer or a student. It will take 24 hours for you to activate these keys. This is the main part of the code. You have to give this, then only you can retrieve the data. So out of that, this API will do all that. It simply pulls the data and the images and just prints it. So this is a very easiest way of doing it. If you're going for text, then you have to check with regular expression. I also have for text, but want of time, I'm not showing it. So this is how we pull up the data and images for social media analytics. This is the starting point for social media. When you successfully do it, you can go on building how we can improve your social media analytics, sentiment analysis. All is being done in the code. So this code all is available in a Guru 99. That is the, I will post all that in my comments. So that is very useful website where I have seen the scrapping program working very well. I have referred so many sites, and this Guru 99 is good. Then next about we have worked in visualization tools. See, as a data, huge data, it is not of more useful at all. When you go for visualizing the data, it is very, very important. You have to visualize the data. You can see that we have given a dashboard here. This seems to be very simple, but we worked on this for 1 week because the amount of data, it's a big data. The amount of data we pulled in, and then we sorted it. Here you can see there are formulas I have given. That is MOM is month on month, WOW is week on week, QOQ is a quarter on quarter. When you go for year on year, you can imagine the data, how much it will be generated for a year. So this is a platform or a Power BI and Tableau. These are all the both very, very successful visualization tool the companies are using. Tableau is costlier, but Power BI is a Microsoft product, and it comes with Microsoft. If you have a license for it, we can use Power BI. It is 2 months. We have a package as free. We can plug and play till 2 months. So I'll show you how easy to work on Power BI. When you're doing research also, we are spending much time on graphs and all those things. When you use Power BI like tool, how it will be, they are saying that usually the Excel will be soon replaced by Power BI. They are saying that. I don't know how, because Excel has been since very long time, and it has got a very much useful thing. Still they are saying it. You can see that this program I have done, it's a desktop Power BI desktop version I have downloaded. So you can see that how easy you can upload a data. 2 GB data, fraction of second you can upload in a Power BI if your machine is good. So I'm just having an Excel file. You can choose the model also, relational model, CVS, any model you want, object-oriented model, everything is available. You can choose a model and you can load the data. So it comes to the Power BI directly. And if you want to draw a graph, simply select the attributes here. So you can see this is the passenger survival list on a plane crash. So each country, how many have served. So any graph model you can use. And also if you want to filter it, see, I want a person who's age from 50 to 20, between people between 50 to 20, I want the age group. In the graph, I can apply filter and do it. Okay, it also, you can see that here we have quick new measures. So this measures will help you to create formulas and statistical tools like stock exchange, this month on month, what we have done, no, all we have quarter on quarter, year on year, because for fixing up the share prices, we have to do it. We have to calculate every year what is happening. So all this could be done with this measure. Measure is a calculative tool which is used to generate this kind of diagrams. And this is the most part of our presentation in FIBA project is all about Power BI, because customer engagement is through visualization only. They want to see the data visually. See, I just want to say what is my performance previous week to next week, this week. Similarly, I have to give the WOW formula. So I have to present a dashboard which is showing all the, they will ask what is the product doing well on next week. Like that, the questions will be varied. We have to be prepared with all kind of visualization to project that on the meetings. So we have really worked on it. They have sanitized the data. We didn't work on the real data, because usually my guide says that 50% of your work will be done when you get a correct data on a research. Similarly, getting the data is very difficult, and also it's very sensitive. So they never expose us to a company data or customer data. They only gave us the sanitized data where we can see how they are working, how sample data, so how they are being done. So that is very useful information I have gained. And one more thing, we are moving in the area of big data platforms. So we have Hadoop systems on Karunia also. I have little experience on working with Hadoop systems also. So big data, you know that you cannot simply store on my system or any other system. We need architectures to store it. So Hadoop system uses HDFS, Hadoop distributed file system, and HP storage for data. The main program that is running on Hadoop system is your MapReduce program. So MapReduce program, I'll talk about it later. This is mainly used for sentiment analysis and other things. And similarly, you have certain tools. This is your basic architecture that you have to install, but you can also have standalone version. I have done standalone version on my system also. This is again a big area. One day I thought of taking it as a separate subject. We can do it, because how to run a MapReduce, and it will take a hands-on workshop. We can do it. So you can see here, this is a architecture. This is the basic step. After that, over this platform, you can use all these 2 layers. Anything you want, you can plug and play. So once this is done on your system, I used Linux platform to install it, because it is very faster. The network speed, everything is faster, and I have used only in standalone system. But in our university, we are using this as a client server based. So we also support client server. Here we can see that Hive, Pig, machine learning, Scoop is for RDBMS connector. So these are all the NoSQL terms that we are using on the Hive data platform. Here you can see Flume. This is mainly used for social media analytics. Twitter can be done with Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all could be done with, it's a streaming package. It can, monitoring and streaming can be done easily. And Yarn is the resource allocator. It's like OS, okay? It coordinates every other architecture part. So when you see why this Hadoop architecture, we go for big data, and many companies are using Hadoop architecture because of its reliability. because its data are reliable. At any point of time, it won't fail. So that's many companies are using. I also went for the internship. That company is also using Hadoop architecture for storing their enormous data, because it has the concept of this architecture where you can say there is a name node or a master node, and there are so many slave nodes. They are all distributed process. So you can see this is a diagram where you have a rack and the nodes. So this is the architecture that is installed on the server room for Hadoop architecture. So you can see this, the slave nodes are here. There is a job tracker which will split your data and also split your task and give it to the slave nodes. It keeps track of the each task. This task tracker is for local, how it is performing in local, it will be reported, and from here it is reported to the job tracker. And you have seen that everybody is running a MapReduce sequence, everybody is having. So for example, a program like I have 80,000 records of book. Okay, I have to see search what is the sentiment is going on. This book is like romantic, or it is a book of serial killer or something. I want to check a keyword. Then what I will do is this is the online data. It's a text data. So what I'll do is I'll split the data and give to all the slave nodes. Here 3 redundant copies will be maintained on the slave nodes. And first what it will do is it will ask for the keywords that I am searching. I will give a list of keywords like this. This is, if it is present, this is the sentiment it is going to say. Suppose like that, or a movie database, something I am giving. So first, what it will do, map all those keywords on the given set of pages. So it will run parallelly, okay, and it split the data, run parallelly. It also maintains a duplicate copy, run parallelly, and it will map all that keywords. So once the mapping is done, it will report back to the job tracker. Immediately, it will ask, the job tracker will now ask to reduce. So reduce is like summarizing. So it will summarize and see the word counts, number of words it has been repeated. From that, it will take a decision. It's a kind of thriller, or it kind of achievement movie, like that it can do, or a book, like that it can do it. Here also the name node will be supported by a secondary name node, that we call it as a backup node. Whenever name node goes failure, secondary immediately takes place. So it will be a copy. Okay. So this architecture, they are saying this architecture never fails, and they don't have a problem until now when they are working with big data environment. Big data means they have like 2 minutes of time, 10 GB, 20 GB of data is pushing on our system itself. While you are doing calculation, when you connect into the net, they try to do like that, but we and get it. So you think of whole company, how much data will be pushing in. They have to pre-process, they run the machine learning algorithm. All this is done. We need a very good storage. So Hadoop architecture storage is again a big concept that we have to work. Job scheduling, job tracking, task tracking. They are also the other area of research you can go ahead. And this is a very big area. We can explore it later. So right now, I think I have given insight to all the AI and machine learning that I am exposed to. Right now, we are moving for my research work, which is pretty earlier. I have done 5 years back. So I just rush it on, and we'll have a session of question and answers. Okay, right now we'll move for my work. So I have done node failure prediction and recovery. So what is node failure? Node failure is also called as a faulty node. The node is going to fail because of some reason. It could be a reason of malpractice in the network, or it is due to energy drain, or somebody has tracked it, or it has been hacked or something. We call it as a faulty node. This could be this kind of nodes can be detected easily, and we don't need a replacement for such faulty nodes. We need replacement for good nodes. So we have to categorize as whichever is performing well in the network, they has to be given a relay node, and which is not performing well cannot be included on relay node placement. So that I'm going to distinguish in this work. So usually if I go for AI in WSN, we have neural networks. The literature shows recurrent neural networks. See, in deep learning, we have two. One is CNN, another is RNN. So RNN, recurrent, it has a small memory where it can rely on the memory for training. and weight adjustment. So that is, they have used in the literature survey about RNN in 2009. From 2009 they have used. Then data mining algorithm is from 2009 also. It is having so many data mining algorithms helping to detect the behavior or behavior pattern of the node in the network. Then we have mathematical models helping it, and also a new research initiatives. Nowadays, they are from 2015, reinforcement learning on network is being given, because it's like game playing. Finding a correct path or giving the correct delivery could be a game, like a game. So you will get a reward point. If you go wrong, the reward points will be pushed back, or you will be given penalty. So that is one way of learning the network. So these are all the different types of learning your network or nodes in the network. Okay, so next is the behavior of the node. We have to calculate based on the certain parameter how the node behaves, and then we need to go for the decision making, whether we need to keep a backup relay node or not. So for that, I used normal algorithm, which is not very efficient. Then we go for fuzzy based. So fuzzy based, you all know that it is very helpful for making precise decision. Okay, but the size of the rule base grows when the program grows. Okay, when the parameters grows. So I think I can skip. We have already crossed 53 minutes. I thought of skipping the introduction part and literature survey. So here you see what kind of faults may occur to the node that happens on the failure of nodes. So next is the types of recovery algorithms. Okay, so I told relay node placement. Okay, when there is a node is going to die, you can make a backup node, or you can place another relay node in that position to continue the network to work. So there are different types of algorithms that are helping it. So I have listed it. And the last one, you can say that backup node placement for critical nodes. So what do you mean by critical? Which has a good trust index, or node which is performing well in the network. By observing it, we are finding it. From that, we are giving them a backup node. Okay. So how will you say a node is performing good? So these are all the deployment technology. We are going to work not on pre-deployment. Pre-deployment is positioning the sensor nodes and the relay nodes at the earlier stage. Second one, post-deployment, after deployment, accessing it, maintenance. And redeployment is adding additional node at some point, like putting a backup node or relay node. So we are working on redeployment phase. So how will you find a node is good? It's been participating in the network very well, or its pattern is good. That is, we can find it whether it is participating in most of the transmission. So they are acting like a backbone for a network. Then we can say it is a participating more. So this backbone node is another concept. Finding whichever node is contributing much for the data transfer on the network. So it can be calculated in many ways. One of the way here given is grid partitioning. So here in each grid, one node will act like a cluster head, and it is the backbone of the network. Through this, the communication to the other grid happens. So this is one method. Other method is an algorithm using distributor clustering algorithm. The node which is having higher weightage, you can see this, the nodes which are black in color or acting like a backbone node for network. It keeps the network going, so they are called backbone nodes. And next is the mathematical model, which is, we call it as a connected dominating set. Set theory, if you know, we can understand this better. So these are all the motivation for my backbone node. So now what is the problem is, I cannot go for high mathematical model. We cannot go for a algorithm which is only based on weight calculation and also the positioning. So thought of making it simple, we can go for a patternizer algorithm or pattern finding algorithm. This two author has already done it. The first author has implemented the pattern based behavior of the sensor node, and the co-occurrence of the sensor node is being detected. And also he has given in the next paper how it could, order of co-occurrence is also being given. So this is how we are going to do it. So when a node participates on a network, we use a data mining algorithm. So before going to the data mining algorithm and other things, This is a pattern, simply a pattern mining algorithm, which reads the pattern of node and their occurrence on the network, and also it finds the co-occurrence of node. So you can see first I initialize the network. This is the thing. How in the column I have given R1, R2, R3. This is the number of rounds, and there are number of nodes that are participating in each round. So every time, first initially for 20 or 30 rounds, you have to observe the nodes, how they are participating in the network. Then after that nth round, there is a threshold round. After the nth round, we start reading the patterns. Okay, it's from history only we can do. So at that time, what we'll do is we cannot directly go for finding that in a simulated environment like MATLAB I have used. So at that time, I have tried with TinyOS simulator and LogoSim, but it is not efficient as if when you're going for machine learning algorithms like data mining algorithm, it's not cooperating. So we went for MATLAB. In MATLAB, we cannot position the nodes. So what I thought of, we are going for a PAJAC, that is a graph database. Nowadays, this graph database is also very important on social media analytics, click analytics, all this recommendation systems, they use it. So all websites could be mapped as a nodes. Similarly, here also all nodes are being given, and the connectivity between the nodes are being marked with the support count. That is because of co-occurrence of the node, the support count has come. So we have already studied about Apridi algorithm and F-growth algorithm. So since it is a network based, we need the order also, and I added the timestamp also. So we went for PLC algorithm, positional lexicography is order, okay, lexicographic algorithm, which will give you the each path support count on the frequent item set. From that, you can see how co-occurrence of nodes are happening. So this could be, we are suggesting that this could be a backbone node for the network. So here it is the main part of the node behavior. From there we start, then we move on for data aggregation is one of the parameter I have chose, because if you are a backbone node and keep on dissipating the data, it is not point of view. So we have considered one more parameter, that is data aggregation, and third parameter is connectivity. All this is I have taken as input for a fuzzy logic system. So we use this is the basic rule of a fuzzy system. You have to fuzzify the real-time data into crisp. Then use rule base. Rule base is purely constructed by us. We only construct the rule, and that from the rules the inference is made, and the defuzzification has to take place to convert that into output. So you have the first step is to fuzzify the input. I have used trapezoidal and triangular method. You can see that data aggregation, frequent item set, connectivity, energy. These four parameters I have taken. So then I start this. Four parameters or have three linguistic. We can have more linguistic variable. 5 also we can have, but I have only 3. So this linguistic variables are matched with the output, and we have got it. The output. So this is how your fuzzy system, normal fuzzy system work. Fuzzy engine. I use Man-the-Me model. Okay. So this is how now fuzzification. How will you do your fuzzification? So you have to set the limits for the node. This is purely done by paper literature survey, and the threshold values are calculated, and the threshold for each item set I have kept, for each parameter I have kept. Then you can see that how we are converting it into crisp data into fuzzy just by weighted average. I take the weighted average of each parameter and multiply it so that we can get a fuzzified set. So we can use many other functionality. This is the easiest of doing the thing, and also we have so many other way of doing fuzzy logic. Crisp conversion of real data set into crisp, we can do so many other way. And you can see here, this is the rule base, and this is the parameter. These parameters are converted, so numeric values are now converted into fuzzified format. So it has only 3 information: high, low, medium. Like that we have converted. This is what we call it as a fuzzification. So first step, fuzzification is done, and then after fuzzification we use rule base. So this is a rule base. After fuzzification we use rule base to convert that into rule, and then from based on the rule you are giving the output. So this is how we are converting that into your output. So right now, once your when your number of parameters is going to grow, you can see 81 rules I have to make. If your parameters is going to go, your rule base is going to be very bigger. At that time, you have to reduce the size of the rule base. Then you can go for clustering. This can also be done with reinforcement learning, which will be very useful. Okay, thank you for listening.